So most new hosts think that setup is about style or maybe even trying to save a little money. But what actually costs you bookings are the things that you forget, but guests notice the very moment they walk into your property. We've hosted over 10,000 guests over the last decade, and after reviewing every bad review, every guest complaint, every phone call that we've gotten, we've noticed a pattern. And in this video, I'm breaking down the top 10 things that new hosts sometimes may miss, sometimes overlook, that quietly kills your ratings and your incomes, so you can actually avoid these, get booked faster, and earn 5-star reviews that leads to increased revenue. So if you're new here, I'm Seth, and over the last decade, my partner William and I have hosted over 10,000 guests. We've earned over 3,500 5-star reviews, and we've grown from just a single property making a few $100s a month, where in 2025, we're slated to clear our first $1 million in revenue. So the things that I'm covering in today's video are things that we've actually done. These are things that mistakes that we've made along the way in setting up our Airbnbs. This is not something that I read online or watched in a YouTube video. Getting a checklist is great, but if you stick with me throughout this video, I'll show you exactly which items on this list to prioritize, because I know sometimes you cannot do every single thing. So hang with me and I'll show you which items to prioritize that you can address today as you're setting up your Airbnb. So the very first item on the list is unclear parking instruction. Guests need to know exactly where to park their cars. And depending on where your Airbnb is located, this could actually be a pretty big issue. If guests park in the wrong locations, sometimes they can end up with parking tickets. And so what you want to do is to include these details in your pre-arrival message to guests. In some of these cases, you may be able to take a photo of the parking space that guests will know exactly where to park when they arrive. But the second item on the list is not having towel hooks or towel bars in the bathroom. Now think about this. Imagine folks are getting out of the shower, they have wet towels. Do you want them sitting that down on your couch? Do you want them putting that down on your wood furniture? But if you don't have hooks in the bathroom, guests will end up putting those wet towels sometimes down on your fabric furniture or as well as on your wood furniture, causing potential damage and just general uncleanliness issues. So you want to protect your furniture by having hooks placed in the bathroom where guests know exactly where those wet towels will go. And if these first two items on the list are already helping you to think about how to set up your Airbnb smart in 2025, go ahead and hit that like button to help other hosts find this content. And if you want more no-fluff videos that helps you launch and optimize your Airbnb, help you scale your Airbnb, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel by just hitting the subscribe button below. This ensures that you never miss an episode and all the kind of jam-packed videos that we're putting together with helpful tips to help you launch your Airbnb. You will get notified as soon as these videos are posted. So the third item on the list is having check-in instructions that are hard for guests to find. And as you might imagine, this is one that makes guests very anxious. Imagine you're traveling from across the country. You're showing up to a new property and potentially to a new city that you've never been to before. And you're not sure if when you get there, you're going to be able to get into that property. Naturally, that's going to create a little bit of anxiety. And so what you can do as the host is just to make sure that the check-in instructions are sent in a timely manner and that guests have these at the top of their emails, at the top of their inboxes, so that they're able to check in without issues upon arrival. So clear check-in instructions lead to better reviews, which lead to increased revenue. So it's in your best interest to get this one right. So this next item on the list is what I can share with you personally. That is probably something that really matters to me, and that is not having access to the thermostat. I'm someone that gets really hot, and when I get hot, I get angry. And so not having access to the thermostat is something that really matters to me. So imagine you're showing up into a property, you open the doors, you get in, you realize, ooh, it's a little bit warm. You can see the thermostat, but it's locked behind a box. Nothing is going to lead to more frustration on the part of guests than wanting to maybe make it a little cooler in the property or make it a little warmer, depending on the time of the year, and not be able to do that. When guests can't access the thermostat, they're going to contact you and ask you to give them access or to adjust it up and down, which is not necessarily the best use of your time. So I want to invite you to consider just making the thermostat accessible. What you can do when they check out is raise or lower the temperature to try to save on the utilities. But while they're there, you want them to have access to the thermostat. It is going to lead to better reviews, which again, resounds to your benefit as a new host. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, wait, I've missed one or two of these. Well, don't worry. We've put together a complete Airbnb setup checklist that covers everything that you'll need room by room. So every amenity and all the systems you will need. No need to guess. You can download that setup checklist below. Now, the fifth item on the list is having overpowering scents. And you want to avoid placing air fresheners and things that make it seem like you're trying to cover something up in your property. A few years ago, I attended a wedding in Fort Lauderdale. And when we arrived at the Airbnb, it was in a great location. The decor of the property was pretty nice, but the host had air fresheners plugged in every single room. Naturally, this triggered my allergies. So we had to unplug all those plugins, open the door and got some fresh air in. In fact, I had to step outside and get some fresh air before I was able to stay in that property. So what you want to do is just use like a natural, neutral smell that is not going to offend guests. Smells can sometimes trigger memories. It could also lead to discomfort for folks who have allergies. So you don't want any distracting smells. Just use something nice, clean, and neutral that is not going to offend your guests. Now, the next item on the list is not having a full-length mirror. Now, this is an easy one, but at our properties, we tend to get guests that are coming for weddings, that are coming for graduations, and it's really important for you to be able to see yourself, to be able to check yourself out before you walk out the door. And so we had to go through and add full-length mirrors in all of our properties. You can either put them directly in every single bedroom, or you can just put one really nice one in the hallway or in a common area that guests are able to use it. This is a small upgrade, but trust me, y'all, it leads to big impact. Get those full-length mirrors installed in your property. Next, the seventh item on the list, you want to add lamps that are accessible to guests, that allows them to be able to have some lighting that match their mood. If you're feeling really into this, you can also add lighting that's dimmable, so guests are able to have multiple options how their Airbnb can be lit during their stay. So lighting, it leads to comfort. Comfort leads to really strong reviews, and strong reviews lead to increased revenue. So again, let's go ahead and address lighting by giving guests a few more options. And the next item on the list is not having local recommendations. Guests love to get local recommendations. And in fact, in an earlier video, I talked about you putting together a guest handbook, which is a staple, an item that you absolutely should have. It could either be a printed guidebook, or it could be something that is digital that you have on Google Drive that can be emailed out or texted out to guests. Now, in this guide, it's your opportunity to share your recommendations of your favorite stops, your favorite restaurants, your favorite attractions in your town. In fact, it's a way for you to show your expertise. But one of the most common requests that we'll get from guests is what's open late. So imagine you're in a new town, you don't know the lay of the land, you may not know what restaurants are open. And so having this accessible to guests is a great way for you to build trust and increase your expertise as a guide for your local area. So getting these in place help guests feel connected. And when they feel connected, they're going to reward you handsomely with great reviews. Again, good reviews, increase revenue. Let's get those recommendations in. Now, the next item on the list is not having enough plugins, areas for guests to charge all their different devices. Guests today, especially the guests that we host, which are primarily families, they're coming with a laptop, they're bringing their phones, they're bringing their tablets, they're bringing smartwatches. So each guest individually have multiple items that they need to plug in and recharge. And what happens when you don't have power strips or plugins in the right areas, guests are going to unplug things that you absolutely do not want them to unplug. So you don't want them to unplug your Wi-Fi. You don't want them to unplug, lamps that will come on automatically to help guide them into the property. But when you don't have sufficient plugins, they're going to unplug some of those items. So the key thing here is to make sure that you have power strips installed in the living room, maybe in the dining room area, and absolutely in the bedroom next to the bed, where they're going to want to plug in those items before they turn down for the night. So improve the number of opportunities for guests to charge their items by ensuring that they have plugins in all the rooms that they're most likely to use those items. And the next item on the list is not having no backup toilet paper. In most cases in your bathroom, you may have toilet paper already on the roll, but what you want to do is you want to have like 2 or 3 backup. This tends to be an embarrassing thing for a guest to have to call and ask you about. Hey, excuse me, do you have any extra toilet paper? You can avoid this by having at least 2 or 3 extra rolls in each bathroom. It is better to be generous and not have them need these items than for them to have to reach out to you. If they have to reach out to you, they're going to remember it, and it's going to be something that really sticks with them. So avoid this by having some extra in each and every bathroom. Now, I've gone through a list of some of the items that you may overlook, but guests never overlook. These are items that they often will see the moment they check into the property. So it may be that you cannot address every single thing on this list, but I want to encourage you to prioritize these items. Again, make sure the check-in instructions are clear. This is essential to guests being able to gain access to your property. It's the number one thing that you want to prioritize. Guests need to be able to get in, get settled, and be able to access the property that they're renting from you without it being an anxiety-producing event. Get those check-in instructions clarified, and your guests will reward you for it. And the next item is, if you can't address all the items on this list, be sure to get a full-length mirror. This is an inexpensive item, but it's something that guests will be thankful that is in place. You can grab this from any major box store. In some of the towns that we operate in, we have an IKEA. And so we'll just run to IKEA, get a really nice full-length mirror. And in fact, in our properties, we have one in every single room. So if you can only get one, place it in like a hallway or a common area so guests are able to have access to it so they can look their very best when they're coming to your property for a special event out in the town. So if you cannot address all the items on the list, the last item I want to encourage you to prioritize is just to make sure that guests have a way to charge all of their items. People are always on their phones. They're always on their devices. And so if they can't have their items charged without having to move furniture and things like that, it is going to lead to a lot of frustration. So be sure to have charging stations in the living room, sometimes in the dining room, but absolutely in the bedroom. You want to make sure that you have ample charging stations, areas for guests who recharge their devices. So as you're reflecting on this list, I'm curious, which of these did you not think about? Or if you've recently set up your Airbnb, which of these did you not incorporate into your current property? Go and drop a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. So if you're interested in avoiding some of the most common setup mistakes, you want to watch this next video. Because when you pair what you've learned in this video with that one, you're going to be ahead of 90% of the hosts in your market.